Boa noite para todos. Então, como eu estava falando para vocês antes, essa palestra faz parte de uma série de atividades internacionais que a gente está organizando aqui no programa. Essa é a terceira, né, desse semestre. A gente teve uma palestra com o professor Michael Godard, da Universidade de Salford, que falou sobre arqueologia da mídia. Em seguida, a gente teve palestra da professora Luciana Gattaz, que falou sobre redes sociais, Facebook, a questão da solidão na sociedade contemporânea. E hoje a gente vai ter a palestra do professor Roberto Simanowski, que, para quem não conhece, tem vários livros publicados sobre hipertexto, arte digital, cibercultura. É um dos maiores especialistas do mundo nessa área de estudos de hipertexto e arte, né, digital. Ele já trabalhou nos Estados Unidos, foi professor na Universidade de Brown, foi professor em Basel, na Suíça, e no momento ele está em Hong Kong, City University of Hong Kong. E a palestra de hoje, o tema extremamente atual, contemporâneo, é a questão da informação na sociedade digital. O título da palestra é Monetizando a Transparência, o caso NSA, a internet das coisas e as redes sociais de uma perspectiva de teoria da mídia. Eu não sei se todo mundo entende bem inglês. Não precisamos traduzir, né? Então, eu queria agradecer ao Roberto pela presença dele. Queria agradecer a vocês por estarem aqui hoje, ao PPGCOM, né, pelo apoio a essa iniciativa. E aproveitar para avisar que também em setembro, no dia... Não, desculpem. Semana que vem já tem outra. Na quarta-feira, às 18h30, não vai ser na quinta, vai ser na quarta. Às 18h30 vamos ter a palestra do Arturo Colorado, né, espanhol, que vai falar sobre a questão do museu e da arte na cultura digital. E depois, em setembro, no dia 10 de setembro, a gente vai ter a visita do filósofo alemão Christoph Türke, que vai falar em português, muito chique, né? Sobre o tema do... Acho que é o último livro, né? Esse, do Sociedade e Estado, não? É o... Déficit de atenção. Que eu estou sofrendo de déficit de atenção porque eu esqueci. Mas o Eduardo, aliás, eu queria também agradecer a presença do professor Eduardo Losso, está aqui hoje, da UFRJ, foi aluno do Türke. Essas atividades que a gente tem organizado também são frutos, né, de várias parcerias que a gente está fazendo interinstitucionais, que eu acho que é uma coisa que a gente explora pouco, né, na Universidade Brasileira. Então, eu queria agradecer que o Eduardo está aqui, graças a ele o Christoph Türke vem aqui, e o Adalberto Miller, professor da UF, nosso colega da área de literatura, que provavelmente também, através de uma parceria com ele, a gente vai trazer um grande especialista japonês em cinema e mangá. Só que eu não consigo falar o nome dele. Yomota Inui, que provavelmente vem também falar no final de setembro. Então, a gente tem um calendário aí bastante agitado e eu realmente recomendo que vocês aproveitem, né, ao máximo, porque são raras as oportunidades que a gente tem de ouvir, né, gente desse calibre, né, pesquisadores de renome internacional. Então, thank you very much. Roberto, please.
Thank you. And thank you for your nice introduction, whatever you have said. I'm sure it was also always all good stuff. E escuto para não falar o português, mas o meu português não bem, porque mais que 20 anos que não falo o português. É necessário? Okay. Okay, that makes it more complicated. I thought I can just sit here and talk. Now I have to hold at least this object. Now this is not the first time that I'm in this room. It's also not the first time that I give a talk in Rio. But the other time when I was here, I was listening last week, and the talk was at Phuket. So I'm glad that both comes now together, that I'm sitting now here and can share my thoughts on monetizing transparency with you. And now the title starts with the NSA word. I'm actually not going to talk about the NSA affair. We can talk about this in a discussion if you want, but this is also known and in the media that there's no need to introduce this or to recapitulate the NSA affair. My interest is to go beyond this debate because I want to talk about things that have been left out in this debate about the NSA. And this is the data valence beyond intelligence service, and this is the transparent customer rather than the transparent citizen. Now, the start you have seen, that was a video by the video artist Chris Oakland from Canada, and this was from 2009. That is 10 years ago, as you know. It's an important year. It's the year when the RFID chip was introduced, and this inspired Oakland to this video, because now he thought that with RFID chips we will all be identified like products and be as customers in a catalog, as you have seen in this video. It's an interesting year for this, because 2004 is also the year when Google went to the stock market. And Google is, of course, an important player here. I don't need to stress this, in the concept of data, big data mining. It is also the year when Facebook started, another big player in this regard. It is 3 years of iPhone, which, of course, extended the time and realm of communication that is digitized and therefore can be mined as in the way of by algorithms. And Kindle allows that also because it produces the transparent reader, so the reader can be read. You know this, that you can see what other people have commented, and Kindle can see when you have stopped to read, when you have resumed the reading, so it knows where you were bored or where you were excited. It knows what you have read twice. So it knows pretty much, it has pretty much a lot of information about your reading habits, and from that it can know how you perceive the text. So that is why I say the reading can be read in a way that perception theory couldn't have dreamt of in the 1970s. And of course 2004 is 10 years before the introduction of Google Glass. And the picture, a good picture that I found for Google Glass is this one. It's the secret agent of 2014. They try to present it more in this chiffre way, not like, but I think this is more appropriate because that's actually what the piece does. Although we still can debate who's the agent. No? We all are agents then, because we all can say Glass record this or things like this. But of course, at the end, we also know that everybody who's interested in our data will look through our glass and will see what we see, which is a radicalization of the surveillance that was not possible before. So we take actually the eye of the Big Brother into us. Our eyes become the eyes of Big Brother, and the data, as soon as everything what we see will be collected somewhere. And it will. There will be reasons why we should be connected with the server, and why what we see right now should be on a server as data, where it can be collected, sold to other agencies, and then mined. Because if we don't say what we see, then Google cannot help us, cannot fulfill the service that it offers. Now, Of course, the reputation of Google is not good for that, and that started years ago. This is an image from a newspaper, a German newspaper in 2010, when Google did the Street View capturing in Germany. There was some protest against this, and the newspaper, or the magazine, the equivalent to the Time magazine, the Spiegel, then wrote, Big Brother, Google is watching you, how the internet company wants to make money with the pictures and data of your life. So it's not new to call Google Big Brother, and probably we all also remember how Google itself said that it would, or proclaimed not to be evil. Don't be evil was this informal motto of the company, meaning that they wouldn't sell the interest of the users to companies, but that they would, and they wouldn't do anything for short profit, for a shorter run profit, but they would be, well, the opposite of evil. Now, we know that they are not, but that's not the point. The point is that this imperative has been readdressed. Don't be evil now is not a declaration about a company philosophy of Google anymore. It's a warning to the customers. And that becomes clear at the latest when the former Google CEO, Eric Schmidt, says, if you have something that you don't want anyone to know, maybe you shouldn't be doing it in the first place. And then, 1 year later, so to make sure that we all understood, he repeats it with other words. We know where you are. We know where you have been. We can more or less know what you are thinking about. Now, you find these quotes online with chapter and verse. They are very famous. Okay, but the point is that it's not Google alone that is interested, or rather we have to ask, why is Google interested in this, and what comes out of this observation. Now, one thing I want to bring up here is that is the transparent customer. And it is clear that marketing always has also dreamt of the transparent customer. It dreamt and it dreams of the same full take that, as the intelligence agencies say, that they like to do. No? All data from everybody, always. So this full take and real-time data, maybe you remember, was some months ago when they said that the intelligence agencies would now do real-time data surveillance of social network. So that is their dream, and that's also the dream of the marketing, because they want to refine the classical concept of segmentation into individual customization. So they want to know everything about every single person. They don't want to put us into a segment of buyers, customers. They want to know exactly what we want. And that's logical, that's plausible. No? That's the interest, to know as much as you can about the customers so you can fulfill your service and you find good products. The difference may be that the primary goal here is not to control or to apply a moral judgment as intelligence service would do, but to sell whatever the demand is, whatever reveals as the desire of the customer. And therefore, marketing is interested in way more information than intelligence service. They want to know everything about you because there are so many products they want to sell you. Intelligence services, they are not interested in your sexual behavior. They want to know what your links to crime and terrorism is. And of course, they have a broader definition of what is linked to that. Yeah? And sexual behavior or religious behavior may be part of this, but that's not their goal to judge about this. Now, marketing wants to know everything, and therefore the transparent customer is the bigger twin of the transparent citizen. And this is part of what I call the big data business, and what I call data love. That's why my book has the title Data Love and not Big Data, because it is actually a desire for for many information about the customers that is declared as the new trend, and that is the new buzzword in the business world. And I found this, the title Data Love in a manifesto of internet activists who demanded free flow of data. Okay, that was the idea of the 1990s and of the 0 years, but the same free flow is demanded by the business. And this is the title of a conference in Berlin in 2011 that is aimed at entrepreneurs and business representatives to tell them about the next cultural trends. And their self-explanation was, for this conference, business developers, marketing experts, and agency managers are faced with the challenge to create new applications out of the ever-growing data stream with added value for the consumer. In our data-driven economy, the consumer is in the focus point of consideration because his behavior determines who wins, who lasts, and what will be sold. Data is the crucial driver to develop relevant products and services for the consumer. So it's not really clear here, the last but one sentence, that it's not really the behavior of the customer that determines who wins. It's how good the company is in getting data and mining them. That determines who wins. And this is the reason why everybody now wants to be part of this big data business, wants to have data, even though mostly one doesn't even know what to do with them. But there are many number crunchers and software programmers in Silicon Valley and elsewhere who look for new methods to get interesting information out of trivial data by matching one data pool with the other and by applying new methods. So for that reason, the trend or the slogan now is get all the data you can, even though you don't know yet what to do with this. They are valuable. They are valuable. We will find the methods to find something in it that we can turn into money. And of course, there is parallel to this new trend in business, there is this new cultural trend of transparency that is most famously linked with the Facebook as the most successful example of social networks. And they, of course, want to know everything of us, about us, and they know everything about us, everything that we like on them, everything what we read while being connected to Facebook, all the pictures we post and all the comments we post, our preferences. And you could say it's a kind of public diary that is produced, and more importantly than public is it's automatically produced. It's an automatic autobiography, because I don't need to say how the day was today, as I do in a diary when I sit down and finally reflect what happened to me. No, the algorithm will report everything in real time, everything I read, everything I liked, everything I commented. It will document, and then I can look this up later if I'm interested in my autobiography. Which is not the point. The point is that the algorithm can also look it up and see then what I'm interested in. And that may be more important. Maybe the only reader of these automatic autobiographies in the future will be the algorithm. Because we don't have the time, because we have to post and link and like new things. But of course it's a mission. Everything dangerous and ambivalent is a mission. And this is a mission to give people the power to share and make the world a more open and connected space. It's all Silicon Valley. It's not about money if you think that. It's about improving the world. And the sharing is, well, but that's already from a perspective of critical theory. The sharing is practicing of being transparent in a nice way. And this culture even produces some interesting gadgets and things that keep us busy and allow us to collect, to produce and share data in a new way, data that we never thought of we would share them or we would even record them. So you all know Jarbon. You know what you can do with this. Maybe you also know the narrative clip, which is here, this device that allows you, I got one of these devices because I want to experiment with this, but I still have to be way more, I don't know what to say, immoral or courageous. I just cannot use it because I have to word here or here somewhere, and then it will take a picture every 30 seconds of what is in front of me. That would now mean of you. And I have all these pictures then, and then in the night I can look at them and I can share them with whomever I want to. And yes, such product exists. And yes, there are companies who come up with this, and their rhetoric is, of course, it's not surveillance, it's you want to keep those moments, right? Those exciting moments in your life. And they show, of course, in their commercials, kids and namoradas appear there, and then you say, yeah, I want to keep those moments. Yes, I need that thing. Yeah. So one day I will apply it, partly when I'm back in Hong Kong, because there it's more accepted such thing. I don't know. This little thing there in the middle is a smart. It's an intelligent bin, smart bin. It's a project at the University in Newcastle. They produce this. So the smart bin, if you Google for this or look for images, you find the bin that has an LED screen and gives you news or advertisements. But what is really meant with the smart bin as a project is that it knows what kind of waste you put in it. It will scan it, and it is connected to the city council, and it will tell them whether you recycled correctly. And it will tell them when it is filled and when they should come and get the trash. Of course, so that is the official rhetoric behind this. So it helps us to deal with trash. So it's clear we need a smart bin, but it also is a way of disciplining us, no? Because the data, what is in there, will be connected to our address, to our name, and then, of course, it can also be seen how our record is in this regard. Now, the most bizarre product is the Happyform. Happyform at the right, it's actually produced by a company from Hong Kong, which is why I think I could apply the narrative clip there first. The Happyform is happy because it tells you how often you have moved it to your mouth in 1 minute. So it can tell you whether you eat too fast and how long you eat. And since fast eating also means obesity, because you eat more than, you don't wait until the digesting kicks in and until you feel you're not hungry anymore, so you eat more. So therefore, a Happyform is actually the instrument we cannot live without. If you have thought there's no money to be made anymore in the fork design business, you're wrong. And think of the books, no? Didn't we think there the same way? So the Happyform records the data about your eating, and then you put them into your smartphone or into your app, and then you can see how your behavior in this regard was. Like with the jawbone, you get all these this visualization, and you can react accordingly. So certainly it will help you to slow down your speed in eating if you use it. So, but the thing is, these are some examples, and there will be more bizarre examples that will come as soon as we have got adjusted and used to this bizarre objects. There will be more bizarre objects. I leave it to you to fantasize and to imagine what this will be. But one thing is important, that the ideology behind this is expressed by one self-tracker who says this in a New York Times article about self-tracking 3 years ago. There's so much info that it would be a shame not to track it. So this ideology is behind this, and that is what I call the enthusiasm, that you track all the data you can, and you will see later what you can do with this. And if you read these articles about self-tracking conferences, they have bizarre questions. For example, whether it's easier to fall asleep if you stand on one leg half an hour before, or what's the connection between the butter consumption and sleeping. This can all be, I mean, it's not difficult. No? If you record your butter consumption, then you can connect it, and your sleeping behavior, then you can connect the data, and you can see whether there are some patterns. And then, of course, there are other data that you can include. And the guy who's the hero of this movement is Nicholas Felton, who started in 2005 his annual reports, where he collected this data still by hand. He wrote down how many miles he moved in a cab, in a car, on a bike, in a subway, in a plane, and in a ski lift. Or he wrote down how many beer he drank, and from how many sorts, different sorts. Or how many books he read, and how many pages, and how many exhibitions he attended. What you would not find in his annual reports, which then end up as these nice visualizations, and you can find them online. What you don't find there is what books he read, the titles, or what impact they would have on him, or the impact of the exhibitions. Now, he's the hero. He works for Facebook Timeline now. If we look at this from a perspective of a critical theory, then Zygmunt Bauman's notion that we have of this as a second managerial revolution is interesting. And that says that the observation of man is taken over by himself, and the disciplining has been replaced with self-discipline. And he says then that everyone now carries their own mobile, portable, single-person mini panopticon, just as snails carry their homes. I'm not getting into the panopticon and Bentham and panoptism. You are familiar with this. That is the usual keyword for this discussion. To sum it up, we have this data valence works on this collection of personal data works because of stinginess, ignorance, narcissism, convenience, hope, and enthusiasm. So we give our data for discount cards, that's the stinginess, no? We want to save some cents, and we give our data about our consumption behavior easily away. We don't care, we have Gmail. Who has Gmail from? No. I will not email you. So, and that should actually be a value in our culture nowadays, that we don't force communication partners to give their information to Google. So that is I call this the ignorance. It's convenience to have the GPS or the Kindle reader, and it takes data, okay. Narcissism, of course, social network and narcissism, you know about that link. Hope, we of course also hope that this will bring progress in many regards. Data collection and mining will allow us to avoid traffic jam. It will allow us to cure terminal diseases better. So there's also this hope that more knowledge, more data mining will bring needed knowledge. And there's this enthusiasm that you find in with these self-trackers. We just love to do this because we can do this. And of course, values have changed. Those people who said, as for example, the sociologist Zimmer, the secret is one of man's greatest achievements, or who say that they feel each other as slaves, insofar as they appear to the other in the public, as Sartre said, and we heard this quote last week, or as the German writer says, I live of what the others don't know about me. Those sentences are either not understandable anymore, or we don't subscribe to them anymore. This is speak of the older generation. Look at the pictures. Now, it's also part of our cultural history or of modernity. This desire to measure is an imperative of modernity, and one example for this is this quote by Alexander von Humboldt, whom you see here at in front of the volcano Chimborazo in Ecuador, at the painting from 1810, and he says, a hill whose height remains unknown is an insult to the intelligence. And why should we stop with nature? Why not the social environment also to measure? And this is exactly what happens. It's also called the quantitative turn. The old wisdom, business wisdom, what can be measured can be managed. That's one motive why we should do it. If you can measure it, you can learn to improve it. That is, of course, the idea behind statistics, for example. And then, that sounds already like a warning. If you can measure it, someone will. And that somebody should be you. Now that sounds as if you measure what can be measured, then you keep sovereignty of your data. But of course, you don't. You don't determine what happens with the data. Because you know, if you have Jabun, you know that you can't even look at these data if you are not online, because they all go to the server first, and you can only see what they see. But that's the rhetoric. This quote is from one of these self-tracking product companies. Now, from the perspective of techno-criticism, again, Zygmunt Bauman, who brings this maybe together, or this is an additional perspective. I just said it's part of our culture, it's part of modernity to measure everything. but it may also be part of the self of what we can call the message of the medium. Now let me start with this quote by Bauman, who says that we no longer develop techniques in order to do what we want to be done, but we select things for doing just because the technology for doing them has been developed, or rather has been come across accidentally, serendipitously found. So this sounds very much like Marshall McLuhan's media theory that can be actually reduced to this sentence: we shape our tools and then our tools shape us. And I have an image here that I found that I saw at a protest against in the course of the NSA debate in Germany and elsewhere. You found this image, yes we scan, and of course the allusion was to yes we can, and it presented the disappointment about Obama, who promised a different policy before, and now did not move anyway towards Snowden or towards the necessity of discussing this, while the former president Jimmy Carter, he said that Snowden is a kind of patriot and not a traitor, because he started a discussion which is important for all of us. Obama didn't go that far, so that's reason enough to be disappointed. But on the other hand, if you read those slogans together, they make perfectly sense as a comment of our situation, of how technology determines our culture. Yes, yes we can, and therefore we scan. That is how you have to read it. Who would not scan everything when you can? And as an intelligence agency that is interested to find out things that other people try to hide, you will use every technology that you can. As a marketing, as a manager, you will also use every means that you can to get the information you want. So, and therefore, the full take is unavoidable because it is possible. And the opposite, if you would avoid the full take when you can, if you would avoid to scan when you can, it would only almost be a breach of duty for the intelligence service or for marketing. So the control society, one could say, is the inevitable consequence of the process of modernization. And here you have two books that talk about this, The Culture of Surveillance by William Staples, who is still about video surveillance, video cameras, not about social networks yet, and then The Culture of Control by David Garland, and it already has shifted from the notion of discipline society to control society. Now, this determination by technology is in a book by Hans Jonas, The Imperative of Responsibility. And that book is a very old, actually very old book, relatively old, from 1979. And he looks for an ethics for the technological age, and he says the problem, the fatality of man, lie in the triumph of Homo faber. That makes so that the Homo faber is the concept of humans has become the concept of humans in the 20th century. You may remember this competition between the poets and the engineers in the 19th century. The engineers won, as you know. The poets and the intellectuals. The intellectuals had still a little bit say in the 20th century, after the World War II in the Paris salons, as we heard last week in Luciana's lecture. But now they are gone too, because now it's all dispersed and we don't even have the public space anymore where they can appear and get the attention that they need as public intellectuals. So so the Homo faber and the new Homo faber is the programmer, of course, who does things. And Jonas says that this triumph of the Homo faber makes man into the compulsive executor of his capacity. If nothing succeeds like success, nothing else entraps like success. So that what he actually says is that we are the victims of our own success. We can do these things and then we do them. No? You know this, I mean, there's a famous play in German by Dürrenmatt about the physics who invent the atomic bomb, and how they later think, why did we do, what were we thinking? And it's about the responsibility of people who invent. And I don't think that we have anything learned from this. We just do things, and especially with this technology, we, of course not we, but people who consider themselves entrepreneurs, for example, and inventors, and people who improve the world. No? They do things because they can be done, and it happens with a speed that we don't know how this will affect society yet. And so we come to points where it is too late to go back. And we have been there in history, as this the invention of the atomic bomb shows, and in a similar way we are there again. And now, of course, it's when McLuhan says first we shape the medium and then the tools, and then the tools shape us. You know, the concept behind this is the very short medium is the message. No? It's not important what we communicate with the medium, but it's important how the medium itself, its characteristics, its features, how this changes the situation of man. Now, you know this with the car. Since the automobile, we could have suburbs, because now it was possible to travel huge distances from the place where you live to the place where you work. And that has changed the cities. And of course we know how the book has changed our relationship to wisdom and our thinking, and has produced philosophy, has produced university, and has brought a secularization of thinking. And not only because the content of the book was secular. It was the fact that the book was not, now we had more books, we had copies that were identical, and we didn't rely on the monasteries anymore and on their libraries. So this has changed the world drastically, and the digital media also changed them. And the message of digital media, of course, is computing. It can compute. So the concept of mining of statistic lies in this medium, of programming, if-then programming that can be automatized, of algorithmizing, if that word exists, I don't know. Let's say of mining, data mining, and that allows us to dig deep into data and find new knowledge, and to connect people. That's what the internet does. And of course, this is what we do, and ubiquitous computing is, which should be written in a different way, but somehow this computer changed everything. So ubiquitous computing is one aspect of this, that we have computing everywhere, and the Internet of Things is the other important word here, or the Internet of intelligent, the smart things, that we connect things, and that every object will be a computer and will be connected. And that is the plausible, the logical next step to what digital media want. So one example for this is I got this from a lecture that from Andreas Weigand, a former chief scientist at Amazon. Interesting, the title at this lecture from 2010, Social Data Revolution, and he means social networks, more efficient than the KGB, the Secret Service of Russia. And now he brings up a dream of marketing that has already become reality in Germany. There's a supermarket that has path intelligence, so it knows by your mobile data how you navigate the supermarket. Then it has RFID chips that identify objects, and it has biometric data that identify the relationship between a customer and an object. So, if, for example, it sees that I put the fatty cheese back onto the shelf and I take the less fat-free cheese, it knows that I'm on a diet, and I'm up for fat-free products. So now this intelligent supermarket will observe how I navigate through the supermarket, and it will always point my attention to objects by special lighting. That's not difficult. To special objects that are low fat, and it will, of course, also increase the price, which is electronically presented, because now it knows that I'm determined to buy fat-free products. So this is how marketers dream about the smart supermarket, and it will be service. It's service, yeah. But of course, that is one example for what we can call frog alarm. The frog alarm is that now that we may become those frogs that miss the point when they have to jump out of the water. You know this analogy or this saying? No. So if you heat up the water rapidly in a glass, the frog will jump out. If you do it very slowly, the frog gets adjusted to the heat, and then if it becomes dangerous, the frog is not able to jump out anymore. So it's trapped. And this is, this metaphor, I found this in a discussion about, in this NSA debate, somebody used this to describe the situation in which we are in, and I think it's quite appropriate. We get used to this, that more and more data of us are taken, that our life turns more and more transparent, and at one point we won't be able to change it anymore. Yeah? If you think about it, in 1982, if you recall that, no, you can't, because it was in Germany. But there, the government undertook a census of population, and people protested against this because they didn't want to reveal in this formulas what kind of heating system they have, because the heating system, oil, coal, or central heating, would reveal their social status, and they didn't want to reveal this information to the government. Now, compare this with 30 years later, people have called this a digital Fukushima, the revelations that in context of Edward Snowden. And who was on the street? Some people. But in general, there was an unwillingness on both sides, on the sides of the politicians and on the sides of the majority, the population, to discuss this. No? We are already used to this, and then we have all our explanations. Well, it doesn't. I have nothing to fear, so then I have nothing to hide. This kind of self-appeasement. Now, and we have other more rational explanations why we are not against this data valence. The smart car is a service, right? If we have GPS, why not? And if the car later, for example, records my driving pattern and can tell me that I'm too fast now, or it sees when I fall asleep, I have a second sleep or something, that will help to avoid accidents. Or the asthma inhaler, that if you use an asthma inhaler and that the data are collected, centralized, and by those data about the use of asthma inhalers in certain areas, other people know then that these areas are dangerous now and should be avoided by people with asthma. So why not centralizing these data? It's good. Or the smart bin, smart fridge, of course. Why not letting the fridge ordering the new more milk when milk is empty, or beer when beer is empty? Now, of course, some people will have access to this information, how much milk or beer I store in my fridge, no? But therefore I have the service that I'm never lacking milk in the morning for my coffee. Or the smart supermarket, as I just described. Now, compulsive becomes with the smart fork, of course, smart stockings. No? I read this, that socks or stockings, they will be smart enough to know when they have to heat, when it's cold outside. So they will have a little computer inside and they will heat up. Or the smart house. I saw a TED talk where one guy said that everything, all these objects should have IFD chips so that you find them. And he said he had this joke that one day he didn't know where his shoes are. And as usually, he asked his wife where his shoes are. But I don't want to bother my wife with this, he continued. I want to ask my house where my shoes are. No? And people laughed and said, yeah, that would be fun, and it's possible. No? If you have an RFID chip in your shoes, of course you can ask your house where your shoes are. You don't have to bother your wife anymore. You can also ask the intelligence service, if you want, where your shoes are, or other things. No? So, anyway, by the way, one part of this frog alarm, one information here is, one next step is that Google bought the thermostat company Nestle beginning that year for $3.5 billion. And you know, this company equips the thermostats with intelligence, so it knows then when it is used, it knows when you are in a room, when the body is in a room, and can automatically then heat or work as AC, cool it down. So in all this information, and of course, if you have this information, then you also know when in the bedroom there is sexual activities, right? Because it produces heat. So this is an interesting information. That's the reason why Google is interested to buy a thermostat company, Google as a search engine company, for $3.2 billion. Comes all together somewhere. Now, I have to come to the end, it's data pollution. When I said before, or when I quoted before this conference, that said data is the electricity of our time, others say, and more say it's the new oil. And that is still a wrong metaphor, because in contrast to oil and electricity, data are not used up when we use them. Yeah? They don't disappear. We don't exhaust them. But this metaphor is better than the metaphor of the electricity, because it points to the point of accidents and of pollution, namely through accidents and use. With oil, you know, it's the ship that has an accident, and then there's a catastrophe, and it's the pollution by using oil when we have the cars and we use oil. With data, it's the hack. The data hack would be the accident, and the normal pollution by use would be the normal giving away data. And that means that the supply of personal data that we give to companies. And it is a pollution because it allows to produce statistical parameters and therefore also to expectations about certain behavior against which all other citizens and customers will be measured, regardless whether they are free with supplying their data or not. If enough people do it, and I'm able to say what is the to have statistical parameters about what's the average of something, then everybody else can be measured against this. And first, those who give their data will get advantages, the discount. No? If you have the pay as you drive black box in your car, if you agree to have this, then your driver insurance company gives you a discount. And later in some years it will be the other way around. You will have a disadvantage if you don't give your data. Or you will have a disadvantage if your data do not match the average. So that is this kind of pollution that I mean by just giving data away. The consequences. The discussion goes that this knowledge discovery in databases, and it's interesting how new words and new abbreviations are already produced. So this is KDD. It will force courts to reconceptualize constitutional privacy rights, of course. There has to be a discussion, what is private, what not. That is one consequence. But more important for me is the consequence of predictive analytics or algorithmic analysis. So, and this is another book that deals with this topic. If you recognize certain if-then connections, and you don't want certain then results, then of course you are kind of prompted to intervene at the if level and to avoid certain if actions if you don't want the then results. And if we know more and more such if-then correlations, the society is more and more prompted to intervene. Yeah? That means that the more social knowledge we have accumulated, knowledge discovery in databases, as it is, as Martin Kuhn says, the less individual freedom we have. Because it will all be measured against whether certain then consequences are wanted or not. So if they are not wanted, then the discussion starts. Should the government basically, or other people, insurance companies, for example, or your employer, should they intervene if you do something that they don't want or that results in something they don't want? Some people say yes. The discussion, one example for this is Sarah Conley's book, Against Autonomy. The title says enough. And this is actually an advocacy of the nanny state. Yeah? That the government intervenes and tells you what to do because you are not willing to do it anyway. And they argue with this present bias concept, that people are generally biased in the present and they don't look for their own good, what is good for them in the future. They only live in the moment, and therefore somebody has to take care. And that somebody should be the government, for example. One example for this is Michael Bloomberg's, the former New York mayor, ban of big soft drink bottles in New York, with the argument that if people drink, if those big soft drink bottles are sold, especially in schools, and people drink them, they get obese, which is true. So then some people say, and they argue with Stuart Mill's essay on liberty, the individual is the only one who really knows what is good for him or her, and no government should intervene. And then some others say, and they refer to this concept of present bias, no, the individual doesn't know what is good for it, because it's biased in the moment, the individual is dumb, and the government should intervene. And well, the image of this book is nice. It shows if you make it into a law, then people use the seatbelts. Before, they don't. So I'm coming to the end. The resistance. Of course, that question occurs in this context. We can boycott. We can produce vacuoles of non-communication. That is already proposed in Deleuze, Control and Becoming. Opacity zones, that says the group Título in cybernetic hypothesis, referring to Deleuze. Or Ulysses Meyers, in his book Off the Network, he speaks from paranodal communication. So he refers to the nodes. These are the central points in the internet where information come together. So, and he says one example is, instead of communicating via Facebook or via WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger, which goes all through the node of Facebook, you should use email with a private, not with Gmail, email with a private email server, so that the information go around the node and cannot be centralized. That would be one way of resistance, he said. And of course, more radical than, here, one example, reserves of, that are free of technology. That is an idea by Werner Sombart, a German sociologist in 1935. Taming of Technology is the title, and he had this idea to have reserves, like we have reserves of nature, for nature or animals, where you don't allow the new technology. That was the idea in 1935. They had the same feeling that technology takes over back then. And this kind of reserve now turns from a free space rather into a free time. So you find these kind of books, My 6 Months Offline, or How I Tried to Survive Without Facebook, and I gave in after 3 weeks or something. Yeah? So now we have this concept of free time, because free space is basically not possible. Another way of resistance is technology, better technology, smart software, for example. That is something I saw in a TED talk by Jennifer Goldberg, director of a human-computer interaction lab at Maryland University. She said that we need, because we cannot rely on politicians or on the law, that they will take care of this, so we need scientists to produce better software that will tell us what will happen when we do something. Yeah? So, for example, this software then would say, by liking this Facebook page or by sharing this piece of personal information, you have now improved my ability to predict whether or not you are using drugs or whether or not you get along well in the workplace. And of course, better, it tells me by doing this you will improve, and then I can decide whether I want this improvement and then I like it, or whether I don't like it. But this is the idea of technicians, no diet of technology, but better technology. And then similar is Snapchat, of course, that promises us ephemerality as we know it from communication without any technology, from oral communication, and it promises us this ephemerality again, that images only last as long as my word in this room. But of course we know it's not reliable, and it's not only a Trojan horse, because you never know who keeps those images or who takes a screenshot of an image before it disappears, but it also brings people to share more information, and you share them in a different way, namely in an indexicalic way. You don't describe a situation anymore, you just take a picture and you share this. By this, of course, you share way more information. You have the data, you have the geo data, you have the time data of this, which you don't have when you write something about what happened earlier in the day, right? And you have all details in a photographic way in front of you shared. When you describe it, then it's only how you see it, but maybe not how it really was. So snapshot is actually a Trojan horse that brings people to communicate because it promises ephemerality, brings them to communicate even more and gives more reliable data. Another way, solution, media literacy. To know how do I effectively use or survive, as some book titles read, digital media. And encryption is one aspect here, or how to set the security on social networks. Private routers and servers are ideas in this regard. And of course, that I pay for apps instead of downloading free apps. So, because I know that they make their money with getting my data and selling them. If an app wants money from me, then it doesn't want data from me. In the best case, in the worst case, it wants both. And this is the idea. If we all do this, then maybe there will be in the future an organic market in the internet that is maybe more expensive as organic as whole food is, but it also is more protective of the customer's interest. So this is the media literacy regarded to the I, me. The media literacy regarded to the us starts with the question not how can I effectively use media, but what does digital media do to us as a society? And that requires a discussion. It requires antitrust actions, maybe. The discussion is there. Should Google be forbidden, or should we do something about this? Laws, like the European Court law against Google, you know this, the right to forget, that you can force Google to send an application to de-link certain information, or this idea of corporate technical responsibility, that the business gives the customer the option to buy tickets without having to register, for example. Or that it gives you the option to reject certain aspects of certain terms of service. Yeah? Now it's only either I agree to everything or I don't get the product. That is not a way that's not a responsible answer to the problem by companies. And of course, no forced cloud. I should be able to keep my data, my JBone data, on my smartphone and have then the statistics there, and I shouldn't be forced to store them on the cloud, where I don't know who has access to it. And an idea you find in Viktor Meyer-Schönberger and Kenneth Kupier's book Big Data from last year is to create special forces. So they say that we need a group of algorithmics. We need it's a study. You can have a major in algorithmics, and these people they work as a kind of consulting for companies and as a kind of consumer protection. So they will look into all the big data minings that companies undertake and all the results that come out of this and say something about you. Suddenly you don't get any credit at your bank anymore. You don't know why. Because there was a mistake maybe in the data analysis. And they look into this then. So they certify the factual accuracy of data mining, but also the ethical acceptability. What data have been included in this. That's one idea. And I think that is not enough, because you cannot have such the debate that we need by certain experts. You need the entire, you need special debates beyond expert groups, and this has to be a social debate about communication after the end of privacy, a kind of extended rules of equal opportunity. No? It's in some countries, like in the United States, when you apply for a job, you are not supposed to give your date or your ethical background or your sex even. Now, because it could lead to discrimination. If we extend this rule of equal opportunity, it would mean no data about my genes, because they may say when I may have a disease or something that my company doesn't want to, and that would bring the company not to hire me, and no Facebook data or other incriminating data from my former life, for example. And that can be extended. I mean, that would be the discussion. No? What data about our personal life should play a role in our social communication once we cannot keep those data personal anymore? And that is probably something that will come come anyway. So what we need is a discussion on the social level, how we deal with those data when once we cannot keep them private anymore, or once we cannot keep anything private anymore, because more sophisticated data mining will reveal everything about us, things that even we don't know about us. So how do we deal with this? So here's the connection between the technical development and the need for social discussion. And at that point, I don't know how to continue. And so I stop here. I think that's enough food for thoughts. Thank you for your attention.
Então, eu acho que... Eu não sei se a pessoa tem que fazer pergunta no microfone também, não? Acho que sim, né? Não? Tá. Então, abrimos para as perguntas. Se vocês não quiserem fazer pergunta em inglês, pode fazer em português que a gente traduz.
I was thinking about this way several people are undermining Facebook, for instance. There's this Brazilian artist. She uses the name Born Nowhere, and she created like hundreds of fake identities. I don't know if maybe this is there will be like a static place of dealing or with this surveillance. What do you think about
I think these and there are other projects like this, fake IDs or I like everything, and then so to irritate or to how do you say, to disrupt the data, to produce or to spoil the data pool with wrong data, and so. But I don't think that will work, because it only shows you these are artworks, and they would only work if we all would turn into artists and do this. But that means, but we are not artists, we are people who use the service of social networks. And that means, that requires in many cases, that we are real. No? Otherwise we won't get the right service that we want. So this artist, I don't know if she or he has also a Facebook account with her or his real identity. And that, you see, this is what then the person needs, and this is how because we need it. That's the ambivalence of this problem. As an artist with this project, you can point it out by such a project, and you may say, well, now I have done my share, I have paid, draw attention to it, but it's not really a solution for social communication, because we need to be identified. That's the problem. But your question raises another interesting aspect. So I said at the end we need media literacy. And of course, that will happen in society in certain structures, like at schools or at universities. So people now say, I hear people from universities who work in this field of privacy or sociologists who talk about the darknet. And they say that actually we all need to use the darknet so that we can cover those who really have to use it. And then, of course, they don't speak about the criminals, they speak about the journalists who do good stuff there, investigative journalism, but who need to be undercover. And if we not all go into the darknet, we cannot give them cover with our using it, because then it's clear those who use it, there is something. Yeah? So what do you do with this? Apart from the fact that it may be complicated for us to use the darknet, but do you go and as a teacher and tell in the governmental school tell the students to use the darknet, which your government doesn't want you to tell them?
As a people, but what's the difference now in this region from 1984 and today with the type of technology that we have?
Well, there are two differences. At least you don't need to be you don't need to be a prisoner or an inmate of some institution so that you are exposed to the surveillance, to a night a watchman. And first, there are three differences now. Second is the watchman doesn't need to watch you, because algorithm can also see what you have done yesterday or last year. No? It can always surveillance you back into the past and whenever it wants. He doesn't have to watch in that moment. So the danger of missing what others then do in the back of the watchman is gone. And third, it's the democratization of surveillance. We all are in both places. No? We all watch everybody and can be watched. So, and even those, that includes those from the government, the politicians, everything. Which can be said is a kind of democratization, but that's of course debatable. The only watchman now, if you still look for this central figure that knows everything about us all, but we don't know everything about him or it, would be the algorithm. And those who operate the algorithm.
I was thinking about the fact that for a long time we lived in a society where information is probably the most valuable good or merchandise. But you talked a little bit about the data smog that we live in nowadays, the excess of information, which makes it difficult for anybody to find the right kind of information that they need when they go, for instance, in the internet and they use a web search mechanism. So I'm wondering, isn't this a little bit different situation from the one before? Because now maybe it's more important to know how to get to the information that you need sometimes than the information itself, because of all this, excessive layer of information that we have to go through in order to find exactly what we need. Or do we need to develop better machines to do that? I'm talking about the difference between the information in itself and how to access this information when you live in a situation where there's too much information. This concept of data smog.
Well, I think this problem is related to getting rid of a problem, namely the problem that you have a censorship of who has access to present information. That is, Foucault describes this in the order of discourse, that there's only a limited group of people who have publicly access to media and can share information then there. Well, that would be like you cannot just print a book, or you couldn't just publish a book. You would have to convince a publisher to do this, and or to do on radio or TV, and in order to convince that those guards, those gatekeepers of the communication field, it was to present certain certificates, no? Like I have a degree, a university degree or something, or I have published this, so I was already evaluated by somebody else. So then you better believe me that I don't speak nonsense and publish this. Or they look themselves at it, what they do less and less. But now, you know, we are all sender, not only receiver, so this one communicative utopia that Brecht brings up in his radio essays has come through. We all have the microphone, or we all can write and do this. And that, of course, increases the amount of information as such. No? I'm not talking about all the other information that we produce, the banal information that we produce, the data we produce about our behavior. No? That's actually more information that we produce, and you probably have heard this. No? It's like the pyramid or the clock of the human time. No? The time of civilization is actually the last half minute, no? Of the 24 hours of existence of the Homo sapiens. And so it's now. No? We have, this is the information before, and then the rest is all that what has been produced in the last 2 or 3 years. Information like everything, that jargon, or every WhatsApp communication. But that is different. No? That is not probably the information you want to find. But of course, you have access to this information now as well, and this you didn't have before. That is one advantage. The disadvantage that there's data smoke is connected to the advantage that now everybody can speak. And then, of course, we need means, or new means of evaluations, and those means are new portals, no? or links. It's social bookmarking. No? That so other measurements, other sources that tell us read this and read that. The problem here, of course, is, but that is the problem of such a communication revolution in general. It's a replacement of what one could call quality, however you see this, no? The quality of that Foucault talks about. You first have to have a certain qualification before you are allowed to speak publicly. It's the shift from that value to quantity. No? Now I read what has the most links or the most comments or whatever. No? And whether this is the better criteria to find valid information, I leave to yourself. The more democratic criteria it is, certainly. Whether it's the better criteria is debatable.
And everybody just making pictures of everything and talking about everything without thinking the things too much information. It's quantity, it's quality, and too much information can be toxic in a way that can be also pollution.
You mean toxic to the individual receiver of the information?
Toxic information. Too much information to the point where the system cannot deal with too much information.
Oh, the system.
Yeah. The system? Society.
Well, I don't know, but I don't believe that that the system in a technological perspective may collapse by too much information. I rather believe that the society in a psychological perspective may collapse because it will be absorbed by so many information, so many banal and trivial information that we don't have the time to discuss the real things anymore. And if you take the gist of the critical theory, what Adorno said, is that the amusement that the cultural industry provides us is to distract us from thinking as negation, meaning as negation of the status quo. The first, as thinking as reflection, and then maybe as concluding, oh, this status quo is not how it should be. So if we are busy, and in his concept, cultural industry kept us from this thinking. I think that now cultural industry does it in the camouflage of actually good values like participation and democratization, but it's still a kind of distracting us from the real thinking. And one example for this, I mean, of course, that needs empirical studies, no? And there are many people who say, no, we adjust, our brain adjusts to deal with this information, and we are way better today than without this technology. And it's true, we can look up information immediately. We all do this. Yeah? You could look up something now and then ask critically back if I have made in case I have made a mistake. No? So that actually promotes critical thinking, you could say. But the other argument is that, and you know this maybe from Nicholas Carr's book, The Shallows, or from his essay, Is Google Making Us Stupid?, where he says that we unlearn deep reading because of the multitasking that happens on digital media. No? We are reading something, then there comes in something from Facebook, and then there is this and this, and we do everything together because we think we can. But we can't, because the brain doesn't work this way. We can somehow deal with everything, but we can't really digest everything in a way that we keep it, that we think through something. And that is his argument, and he refers to neuroscientists like Marianne Wolf, who say that we are not only what we read, but also how we read. And if we don't do deep readings anymore, like if we cannot sit down, as he says, he experiences at himself, and he is 50 years old, he cannot sit down anymore and read more than 20 minutes. Then he gets nervous, and he has to do something. Yeah? And in earlier times, he read like 3 hours, and he was really into something, and he can't do this anymore. And then he says, he wonders, well, if I can't do this, and I'm a digital immigrant, what about the younger generation? And if they unlearn this, then they unlearn deep thinking, and that also means at the longer run that nothing goes in your long memory system anymore, and that you actually lose also memory. And the consequences here are disastrous, of course. Now, it's a field, neuroscience, you can't say everything about this because nobody really knows anything. And then there are people who argue against this. With a weak argument, they say that the ability to operate with different information has increased. And that is true. We can, I hesitate to say digest, because digesting means to understand, in my understanding. That means that information becomes knowledge. But we can handle, let's say we can handle more information than people could 20 years ago. You have the same argument in Benjamin's essay on the artwork in the age of its mechanical production, when he talks about the shock in movies. And his contemporaries also complained that, oh, you cannot think anymore because I'm bombarded by images. And he said, yes, but this, because he didn't want to be culturally pessimistic, although his theory in general is, but in this case he wanted to be cool, and he said, no, I love this new technology, this cinema, because that is the practice, or that practices the attention we need to the modern society with all the traffic now in the modern city, and this shock of the images. But again, that's a different kind of attention, different kind of thinking. And those who criticize or who argue against the deep reading argument by Nicholas Carr or Marianne Wolf are correct to say this. But that doesn't solve the problem that we unlearn the more reflective thinking. We change from this to a more machining, handling of information. But it's a more machinic handling of information. And the question is, what comes out of this in the long run? And this is actually then, what's the word I'm looking for? Don't even know it in German. This is not, so we can only fantasize about this. We don't know, because neuroscience also doesn't know. And whenever they say this leads to that, it's not really true. I mean, serious neuroscientists don't do that. They don't say these things. But if we rely just to our experiences that we have, from how our reading habits have changed and our attention span has shortened more and more, then maybe we may think that Carr and Wolf and other critics, Bernhard Stiegler is another one who does it more in a philosophical way, also in tradition of the critical theory, that those people have a point.
But it was a huge library for its time, so having 1,000 books, and it changed completely his way of looking at things. And I think that nowadays we have far more, lots of more of information, and we have a different way of creating intelligence. I don't know, I'm not being too positive, but I think that the way of reading has changed completely. And this is a fact we can't go back, like maybe as in the time of Hegel, for instance.
No, we cannot. We will find new measures to somehow deal with this information. The velocity gets me the idea that maybe there's a connection between velocity and deepness. The faster, the lesser deep it is. If you have to read through an entire book to come to an idea, to a thesis, which is to the summary. Yeah? So if you have been in this field of thinking of a book with all its digressions for a long time, then one could say you really have it in you. Yeah? If you just Google it and you have a theory, you read one paragraph and it's done after 5 minutes, you have it. Maybe the summary, it's the same. But you don't know how it got there, you don't know all the distractions, and I would say you will also lose it earlier. It will not stay with you as long as when you read a book really for days or weeks. But it doesn't need to stay longer with you, because you're always online nowadays, So you can always, if you remember anything, you can always get this information. The question is only, what do I need to be with me, living with me, ideas that live with me, quotes, poems, as we last week, we recited poems. I don't know if you can still do this nowadays, but of course, those poems that live with you, and they come up in certain moments when the moments that speak to the poem, and then you realize something. Oh, that is the moment for which the poem was written, actually. So this is a much richer experience and relationship to knowledge than if you get fast to it. We have technology to get always fast to it again, but they don't live with that. So it's more. One guy has this term, just-in-time, a just-in-time culture. We are a just-in-time culture. We have it when we need it, but not before, not afterwards.
As a strategy to capture that.
What do you mean by the strategy, the concept of the body as an image?
I put my body as an image in Facebook. I'm an image in Facebook. But through this image that I am feeding, I'm putting myself as an image and putting, I'm taking pictures of myself and putting it on the net, on the web. This opens the gap, the way to many data and marketing stuff. So I'm thinking about the many layers of a body nowadays as an image, as a flash, as an algorithm, as a data, as a marketing body. And all this comes from this production of the body as an image.
Well, I think you talk about the body in a Victorian way now, not as a physical, only as a physical object, but as an entity, right?
Yeah.
And you include words as well, data that appear as words and as actions, and not only pictures of the body as such.
How I think about this? Well, I think my entire lecture was about that. That it makes us.
There's a book by a German philosopher, Byung-Chul Han, and he wrote a book. He says talks about our society as the pornographic society, because everything is naked and nothing is hidden. And this has a point that we get naked to the extent that we are completely known. And that is what I talked about in my lecture, saying that this is what's going on, and this is also what is problematic. But if you want to try more on the metaphor of the body, it is as if we lie down at the couch, and the psychoanalyst analytiker is now the algorithm. And we tell him our story by our daily actions. Every life we do, every party we go to, we say, yes, I'm coming, we are guests. Because the algorithm knows everything. There's no limit of the computing data. And the algorithm then knows about us as a body or as an individual entity more than we, which is the situation of the psychoanalysis, with the difference that now we are not told what was found out about us. And we are also not asked whether somebody can make use of this information without our consent.
one last question then. Some time ago we talked about Kulturkritik, the cultural critics like Adorno, the Frankfurt School, or all those people who at the beginning of the 20th century have criticized technology and the impact of technology on the life of modern man. And I've been wondering the last few years if it's not a task for the university to go back a little bit to those people, because nowadays it's not fashionable now to talk about them. I mean, even in the university, it's almost forbidden to mention like Adorno or Horkheimer. It became like a sin if you talk about technology or society in very critical terms. But on the other hand, I think we don't need to be apocalyptic in order to take a look into the past and understand a little bit what they were talking about, and they alerted us about some of the dangers of things becoming too fast for us. Don't you think it's a good time for us now, I mean, in the university, to look back into the past and try to learn some lessons from those people who are all but forgotten nowadays?
I definitely think this way, and when you have read more in my books, then you know that I'm one of those sinners who bring back Adorno. I work a lot with him. I don't agree with everything he said. I don't agree with his philosophical perspective. But what he says about mass culture and the effect of cultural industry, I think he has a valid point. The situation is different than back then. Back then, that was pre-postmodern when Adorno talked, and there was still a hope that society, that there was still a futuristic thinking, or thinking in terms of future, of a better society. And you may recall Adorno's famous saying, there is no correct life in the wrong one. No? Meaning that history hasn't even started to him, because that means history is emancipation of the individual, and it hasn't even started. And here he is on Benjamin's side, what Benjamin says in his thesis about history. No? It was a connection of catastrophes, history so far. And we have to start, and so we cannot live in this wrong life. We have to fight. And I think after the end of grand narratives that Lyotard announced, or the end of history that Fukuyama announced, and after the collapse of the only social alternative that were actually real, the East European system, or the Soviet Union system, after this it's very difficult to still believe into any social utopia. And so if we return back to critical theory, we have to do it more with respect to the emancipation of the individual as thinking, as an active act, rather than to the emancipation of the society, in terms of there is still a better concept of a better society, and if we only have the power, the revolutionary power, momentum, and then the power, we will fight hard for this. We don't think that this is still possible, because we know how that it didn't turn out to be good, and it cost a lot of life. So nobody is willing to do this anymore. But I think we should remember what Adorno says about the emancipation of the individual, and we should ask ourselves how technology fosters this or limits such emancipation. Whether it makes us increasing our ability to reflect, to experience things deeply and authentic, as Adorno would say, or whether it brings us more and more into a kind of matrix system where we just we just exist because we are thrown into this earth and somehow we have to survive the 80s or now 100 years that we have been given.
Bom, obrigado, Roberto. Thank you. Então, mais uma vez, lembrando, né, semana que vem, quarta-feira, às 18h30, Arturo, Colorado, Museu e Arte na época da cultura digital. Espero que vocês voltem, porque com certeza vai ser uma discussão tão interessante quanto a que a gente teve hoje. Obrigado, boa noite para todos.